Hi, this is Kaery from Kaery Concealed and the Active Self-Protection Extra channel. Today we're continuing our series, Use of Force, Files and Trials, and we're continuing a discussion of the case that I had where I wrote a behemoth report and it ended up being that the charges were dropped. But we talked about the process being the punishment, that it took almost 3 years for there to be a resolution in this case. And during that 3 years, this woman's life, my client's life, was absolutely decimated. And yes, she's home now, but it's a very different home than the one she left almost 3 years ago.
Today's video is brought to us by Mantis. The Mantis family of products is integral to ASP staff building handgun and carbine skills and are your most economical and fastest path to improvement in your skills too. Whether you choose the X10, the Laser Academy, the Blackbeard, or use them all in concert, they will help your practice be more effective, efficient, and fun. Go check them out, pick up a unit, and thank them for sponsoring today's video.
I thought we'd talk about some of the resources that I use that help me in understanding the topic of the use of force standards and in being able to explain them, and then just also ones that have just been really helpful to me as an instructor as well. So this report has 7 pages of references, and that's just a list of the works that I consulted or quoted directly or indirectly from. And some people might wonder, why 6 pages of references? Well, the way I approached this particular report is, and the way the attorneys that I was working with asked me to approach it, is they asked it to be done from the standpoint of educating the finder of fact, which truly is the role of a consulting specialist. You're educating not only the client themselves, and the attorneys that you're working with, but also your client's legal team, prosecutors, judges, juries, and sometimes even detectives as well. So why so many pages of references? Because I didn't want to write a report and have it be, hey, this is what Kaery says about it, and you better believe what Kaery says because she's had a lot of training. To me, that I couldn't guarantee that would be good enough or that would give enough information. And why should anybody believe me anyway? That's kind of how I think of it. So rather than asking people to believe me, I like to give them enough information to make a decision for themselves. And with this, I thought it was essential to go back to some of the original sources for information on the use of force standards. Where do they come from? Why do we have them? Who uses them? Do the use of force standards apply only to private citizens, or are they or police officers too? Or what about security guards? Is it only to police officers if they're on duty? What if they're off duty? So things like that, I wanted to have a full, robust understanding of that. And especially in this case, because in this case, the lead detective in one of his reports wrote, based on all the evidence in the case at this time, witness statements, victim statements, and the video provided by my client, by Sharon, I am unable to determine Sharon was acting in self-defense, but it does appear she knowingly let Mr. Vega inside her residence, argued with him, and when he refused to leave, she shot him. Well, that was a tough one for me to read because, first of all, that's not actually what happened. Maybe that's information the detective had, but there was plenty of information in body-worn camera, not so much in the officer reports, but sifting through I can't remember, I think it was 26 hours or 22 hours of body-worn camera footage. There was lots of information in there that helped me understand how medically compromised the client was, the defender was, when this happened. And it just shocked me that if a detective wasn't able to determine whether or not this was self-defense, how on earth could a finder of fact ever determine that? And so the amount of education or understanding that the trier of fact would need to be able to understand is pretty significant. So rather than just expecting people to believe me, I want to be able to I want to directly quote not just studies, but people that have written about this topic. And I'm not a legal expert, that's for sure. We all know I'm not a legal expert. And because of that, I think that's advantageous in a situation like that, being able to help the finder of fact, because I'm not speaking in legalese. At least I sure try not to speak in legalese. So some of the references that I use that are super helpful for me, I've got to bend down here to pick them up. These are in no particular order. They're heavy though. All right, so one of them is this book. This is helpful because it outlines the standards. In the gravest extreme, I also quote in this report also, but you can get a great understanding of these 4 standards by reading this book by Masadi Deadly Force. Another source is I have the full book of this, the full version of this, but I really like this small little snippet, this book that has the small little snippet in it. You can see how much I like it because it's falling apart. But I like this very much because I can easily turn to it. It's a lot more succinct than the actual book is. I like the actual book as well too, but this is easy for me to use and reference. Another book that's been really helpful for me is Deadly Force Encounters. This is by Dr. Artwall and Mr. Christensen. This is a great resource that talks about memory in critical incidents. It applies to police officers, but there's also some cases. Actually, Mr. John has talked about Thomas Yoxall before and his use of force incident, and that's talked about in this book. But this is a great book with a lot of great information in it. This is another one that's been super helpful for me. This is a really new book. I think this was put out last year by Jamie Borden. Jamie Borden is a long time, I think it's Henderson, not Henderson, I almost said New Mexico, Henderson, Nevada sergeant. And he was part of their use of force analysis unit, and they were able to develop a way of evaluating officer-involved shootings, and then what lessons they learned from those, they were able to incorporate those into training within a month, in any training that needed to be updated or changed within a month. And it's an impressive work. He also teaches and offers some great classes. I've only been able to take one of his classes so far, but I'm very much looking forward to taking his other classes. He is just a dynamic teacher as well. And so I really enjoy his stuff. This is almost exclusively from a law enforcement perspective, but it's anatomy of a critical incident, investigations, and analysis. So great stuff there. And he teaches in Chandler, Arizona quite a bit, which is handy because my grandbaby lives near there. So I like going there. All right, this is another book that's been really helpful, Unarmed and Dangerous, because of the misperception that if someone is unarmed, they aren't dangerous. We'll talk about that topic a little bit more, but this is an excellent, even though it's really thin, it's an excellent resource, absolutely excellent resource. I think I quote this like 12 times in the paper, or in the expert witness report. Another great resource for me has been this book, and you can buy this from Force Science Institute. This is all of the studies that Force Science Institute has done, published in a nice, neat little book for you to have. And then to this, I would add all of the other follow-up studies that people that Force Science has worked with and works with have put out. Studies by Dr. Michael Cantor particularly have been helpful to me for this study, or for this report. And 2 more that I'll mention, or 3 more. The one other thing that was helpful for me was, although I don't cite the jury instructions in my report, I do like to know the language that is used in the jury instructions, as well as the language that's used in the state statutes. And I like to use the same language. For example, if they refer to, if the jury instructions referred to jeopardy as intent, not jeopardy, I would probably use the word jeopardy or manifest intent in the report more, and certainly when I was on the stand, because I don't want to be confusing for the finder of fact. I want the members of the jury to understand that those are the same thing. And so for me, looking up the WPICs, or the Washington Pattern Jury Instructions, was helpful for me. They're readily available to you, to anybody. Other states, that's not the case. In other states, you have to join, I'm not even sure what it is, but you have to join something to be able to have access, maybe even have to be a part of a law office or something to be able to access the jury instructions. You don't have to do that to write a use of force expert witness report, but I found them to be very helpful to have, as well as information on topics like furtive movement or weapon retention, or for this case, because I had officers that seemingly didn't understand the use of force standards or didn't know how they applied to citizens, I wanted to find out what is taught at our state police academies. What are officers taught about use of force? Are the same, is the same is the standard the same? We know the standard is the same, but is it described in the same way? And so those were things that were really helpful to me as well. Warrant on Homicide, this is not the actual book. You can't even, I don't even know how much the book would cost. It's actually an 8-volume set, I believe, and it's volume 1 that has so much of the information I needed. But a friend of mine so kindly let me borrow, I can't believe he trusted me to borrow his book, but I brought it home, and then I took screenshots of or pictures of each page of the parts of it I needed, so that I would be able to access them and use them and reference them again and again and again, because they've been very, very helpful to me in explaining where some of these ideas came from, and that they're not new ideas. They've been around for a long, long time, well over 100 years. So I think that's about it as far as resources. It's about all the ones that come to mind. My class notes as well. So from the classes I've taken, like Deadly Force Instructor and Mag 40, those class notes were really helpful. The Force Science Institute courses I've taken were of paramount importance. I couldn't have done this report without the advanced course that we were allowed to take through Force Science. So I just owe a huge debt of gratitude to them for even allowing me to take those courses and learn from those. It made a big difference in what I was able to do for this case. So I hope that's been helpful to you. If you're interested in the Force Science information, I would encourage you to even just visit their website. You can do the Force Science Analyst course online. And I personally feel that that course online is excellent. I don't want to say better than, it depends on the person. For me, it was better to do the online course. I was originally enrolled in the Dallas class in like 2021. But right then I think it was because of COVID, they launched an online course. And so I quickly called and asked if they could switch my registration from the in-person to the online, because I knew that with the online, I'd be able to watch and rewatch the video segments over and over again. And I have, and that's been super, super helpful to me to be able to do that. So anyway, check out their stuff. They've got a lot of great articles there too. If you go to the Force Science News, lots of great articles and lots of great researches they're talking about there as well. All right, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and we look forward to seeing you next week.